Try to remember with absolute clarity what you were doing exactly 3 hours ago. What were you thinking? How did your body feel? What was the exact temperature of the room you were sitting in? If your mind just handed you a blank, empty blur, you do not have a memory problem. You are experiencing a collapse of presence. You probably think you made a conscious decision to click on this video. You believe that your rational mind saw the title, analyzed your options, and commanded your hand to select it. But modern neuroscience violently disagrees with you. There is a very high probability that your finger moved to select this thumbnail milliseconds before your conscious brain even processed the choice. The terrifying truth is that your physical body is awake, but your consciousness is currently resting in a deep, sedated state of hibernation. You are not actually living your life. You are just watching it happen from the passenger seat of an organic machine. And the architects of the modern digital world know exactly how to keep you asleep. We have officially become the first generation in the entire history of human civilization to live in a chronic, collective state of derealization. The world around you is slowly losing its texture. Before we dive into the actual horrifying neurology of why your own brain is currently working against your free will, do me a massive favor to help this channel survive the algorithm. Hit that like button and subscribe down below. It's completely free and guarantees you'll catch our next deep dives into the terrifying reality of the human mind. Dropped a like? All right, let's wake up and break the illusion. To truly understand why you feel like a ghost haunting your own daily routine, we have to look deep inside the architecture of your skull. Inside your brain, there is a massive neural network called the default mode network, or the DMN. You can think of it as the neurological equivalent of a commercial airplane's autopilot system. When you perform repetitive, mundane tasks, like driving your car on a familiar route to work, mindlessly washing the dishes, or scrolling endlessly through an infinite social media feed, your brain silently switches the power over to the DMN to save biological energy. It literally dims the lights in the prefrontal cortex, which is the exact area of your brain responsible for active awareness, critical thinking, and conscious decision-making. In a matter of seconds, you transition from a conscious human being into a biological machine running on pre-programmed scripts. Have you ever driven all the way home from work and, upon putting the keys in your front door, suddenly realized you have absolutely zero memory of the actual drive? You didn't black out. You didn't fall asleep at the wheel. That was the default mode network taking total control of your motor functions. For most of human history, this mechanism was a massive evolutionary advantage. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, it allowed our ancestors to survive in hostile environments. They could scan the horizon for dangerous predators without having to waste precious calories overthinking the mechanics of every single footstep they took in the dirt. The brain is, above all things, an engine designed to predict the future and conserve energy. But here is where the tragedy begins. In the chaotic, hyper-connected 21st century, this ancient biological loophole has become our absolute greatest vulnerability. The human nervous system was never designed to be bombarded by high-speed digital stimulation every single waking second of the day. When your ancient brain gets overwhelmed by the unnatural speed of modern life, it panics and defaults to the DMN just to cope with the sensory overload. The terrifying problem is that you are likely spending 90 to 95% of your entire day locked in this unconscious state. You are functioning, you are paying your bills, you are nodding your head in conversations, but the actual you that makes you a conscious human isn't actually sitting in the driver's seat anymore. And we need to get one thing absolutely clear. We didn't lose our attention span by some random cultural accident. It was systematically stolen from us. The glowing rectangle of glass and metal in your pocket was not designed just to entertain you or connect you with old friends. It was meticulously reverse engineered from the human nervous system to exploit that exact default mode network. Decades ago, a psychologist named B.F. Skinner conducted famous experiments on rats and pigeons using a concept called operant conditioning. he discovered that if you give an animal a reward every single time it pushes a lever, it eventually gets bored and stops pushing. But if you make the reward completely unpredictable, giving the animal food only sometimes at random intervals, the animal goes absolutely insane. It will push that lever compulsively, obsessively, until it physically collapses from exhaustion. This is called a variable ratio reward schedule. Engineers in Silicon Valley took Skinner's research on desperate rats and built your social media timeline out of it. They studied the dark psychology of casino slot machines and mapped out exactly how to hack your neurochemistry. By feeding you infinite, unpredictable bursts of dopamine, these algorithms keep your brain trapped in a perpetual state of passive, hungry consumption. Dopamine is not the chemical of happiness or satisfaction. It is the chemical of craving. It is the molecule of always wanting more. You aren't consciously choosing to watch the next short video or refresh the timeline. Your neurochemistry is just reacting blindly to a digital stimulus, acting exactly like a Pavlovian dog drooling the moment it hears a ringing bell. Every single time you swipe your thumb up on a screen, you are pulling the lever of a digital slot machine. The algorithm running behind the screen learns the exact microsecond your eyes start to lose focus. It knows when you are about to get bored, and it serves you a perfectly tailored piece of outrageous or highly stimulating content just to keep your prefrontal cortex shut down for another 60 seconds. We have literally built giant, climate-controlled server farms across the globe designed specifically to fragment the human attention span into 15-second commercial blocks. The collateral damage of this trillion-dollar business model is the total annihilation of our ability to exist in the real, physical world. You start to feel like the days, weeks, and months are just melting together in a chaotic blur. Monday instantly blurs into Friday because, neurologically speaking, you weren't actually present for any of it. Your brain didn't record any unique, tangible memories because it was heavily sedated by a constant drip of cheap, artificial dopamine. Think about how incredibly absurd our current behavior is. We feel this desperate urge to document absolutely everything. We take perfectly filtered pictures of our food before we even taste it. We record shaky videos of entire music concerts instead of watching the band. And we post our mundane daily routines online for strangers to judge. But while the smartphone camera lens is perfectly focused and recording the moment in pristine 4K resolution, the biological human holding the phone is completely checked out. We are frantically outsourcing our memories to cloud servers and hard drives because our biological hard drive is simply too exhausted to write any new code. This total detachment from the present moment leads to a rising psychological epidemic called derealization. It is a terrifying, creeping feeling where the physical world around you suddenly feels fake, artificial, like you are walking through a movie set or floating in a video game simulation. People who suffer from chronic derealization describe it as feeling separated from reality by an invisible thick sheet of glass. The sky doesn't look as blue, the ground doesn't feel solid, and their own reflection in the mirror looks like a stranger. When you spend 8 to 12 hours a day staring at glowing pixels that perfectly simulate reality, your brain's evolutionary grounding mechanism starts to heavily malfunction. The physical world starts to feel noticeably less real than the digital one. But why is it so incredibly easy for us to fall into this trap? Why do we voluntarily, eagerly hand over our precious consciousness to glowing rectangles the moment we wake up in the morning? The answer to that question is infinitely darker than just saying that social media is addictive. We do it because we are absolutely terrified of silence. In a highly controversial psychological study conducted at the University of Virginia, researchers wanted to test how humans handle absolute stillness. They placed participants alone in a completely empty, silent room for just 15 minutes. There were no cell phones allowed, no books to read, no windows to look out of, and absolutely nothing to do. The only object in the entire room was a small mechanical button on a table that delivered a painful but harmless electric shock. The researchers simply wanted to see if modern people could sit completely still and entertain themselves with their own thoughts. The results of the experiment were deeply disturbing. A massive percentage of the participants voluntarily chose to physically shock themselves with electricity rather than sit alone with their own thoughts in silence for just 15 minutes. One particular participant shocked himself nearly 190 times before the timer ran out. We aggressively avoid silence because silence forces the automatic pilot to turn off. And when the autopilot turns off, the comforting artificial noise fades away, and we are violently forced to face the unbearable weight of our own existence. We have to face our deep-seated anxieties, our hidden regrets, the poor choices we made years ago, and the crushing, undeniable realization that our limited time on this planet is actively running out with every breath we take. Hundreds of years ago, the brilliant French philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer expanded on this by stating that human life swings constantly like a pendulum between pain and boredom. When we are not actively struggling to survive a threat, we are instantly suffering from the sheer suffocating emptiness of existence. Boredom is not just a lack of fun things to do, it is the brutal default state of the human condition when the mind is left entirely to its own devices. For centuries, this painful boredom was the ultimate laboratory for human creativity and progress. It forced our ancestors to build, to write masterpieces, to invent new technologies, and to explore the globe just to escape the existential void. But the modern world did something unprecedented. It gave us a synthetic, immediate cure for that boredom. We now carry a pocket-sized device that guarantees we will never, ever have to be bored again. We never have to wait in line with our own thoughts. We never have to sit on a bus and just look out the window. But the exact non-negotiable price for that artificial cure was the complete surrender of our free will and our conscious presence. By constantly numbing ourselves with an endless stream of content, we are actively running away from the very psychological friction that makes us grow and evolve. We are treating our own consciousness like it is a painful, chronic disease that needs to be heavily medicated with infinite scrolling and notifications. So how do we wake up? How do we take the steering wheel back from the cold machinery of the algorithm? The answer is not found in fleeing society, throwing your smartphone into a river, or seeking out some mystical, esoteric dimension in the mountains. True, lasting awakening is about the brutal, highly practical accessibility of your own consciousness in this exact fleeting moment, right here, right now. It is the conscious, deliberate friction against the autopilot system. It is the act of feeling the actual physical texture of the clothes resting against your skin right now. It is paying attention to the exact temperature of the air entering your lungs and actively demanding your prefrontal cortex to turn back on and take control. The human mind is a muscle that quickly atrophies when left in the digital comfort zone. To reclaim your reality, you must intentionally embrace the exact boredom that the algorithm is desperately trying to cure. You must learn to sit in a quiet room and endure the heavy discomfort of your own thoughts. Let the silence be loud. Let the anxiety bubble up to the surface without immediately reaching into your pocket to suppress it with a glowing screen. Because the exact moment you stop running from yourself, the grand illusion of control shatters into pieces. You realize that you actually possess the immense power to observe your own impulses without blindly acting on them. You stop being a predictable, highly profitable data point for a Silicon Valley server farm, and you finally become a conscious human being again. This isn't just a hack about productivity or reducing your weekly screen time. It is about the fundamental existential ownership of your one and only life. If your attention is constantly being harvested and sold by external forces, you are not writing your own story anymore. You are just a secondary, forgettable character in a script written by an algorithm designed solely to sell advertisements. You have to actively fight for your right to be fully present. You have to fight a daily war for the right to remember your own Tuesday afternoons. The digital world wants you asleep, compliant, distracted, and numb. In an era of constant manipulation, waking up is the ultimate, absolute act of rebellion. Right now, the exact algorithm that runs this platform is calculating whether you are still paying attention to my voice. It is predicting your next move, assuming you will just click on the next recommended video and keep drifting in the current. Let's break its script. If this video pulled you out of your autopilot even for just a few minutes, I need you to prove you are actually here, awake, and in control. Scroll down to the comment section right now and leave a comment with a single word: awake. This simple act tells the machine that you are not a passive viewer. You are a conscious participant who sees the strengths. Hit the like button and hype this video to force the algorithm to show this to someone else who's currently sleeping with their eyes open, trapped in the infinite loop. If you are ready to keep exploring the darkest corners of science and the human mind, make sure to subscribe and join the rebellion. Huge hug, thank you so much for your invaluable time, and I'll see you in the next video.